Our developing story tonight is a story that has captured the attention of the world. Malaysian Airlines has issued a statement saying that the airline's focus is now on the care of the passengers' families. Malaysian Airlines reiterates that it will continue to give its full support in cooperating with the search and rescue mission which is being coordinated by the Malaysian Ministry of Transport. Newsfirst has been closely monitoring the developments surrounding the mysterious disappearance of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370. Let's now cross over to the newsroom where Ramesh Irugal Bandara, together with the Newsfirst International Desk, is ready to give us a comprehensive and in-depth look into the latest developments.
Well, thank you, Nadim. Well, there has been a new development on the fate of flight MH370. Now, two initial conclusions came about after the flight went missing. One was that the flight could have crashed, and the other is that the flight could have been hijacked. Now, there has been new evidence to suggest that the flight may have been hijacked. Now, investigators are now saying that the flight, which was heading from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, had purposely gone off track around thousands of miles from its destination, from its directed path, because of some issue. Now, investigators say there are two possibilities of what could have happened. One is that the flight could have been manually taken off course by a pilot or someone who knows to navigate an aircraft, or it could have been systematically programmed into the autopilot itself. So it is still unclear as to what happened to flight MH370. Now, initially, it was intended to fly northeast from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, but it veered westwards towards the Andaman Islands, and now, because of this, the Americans as well as the international community who are searching for flight MH370 have begun to focus their attention on the Andaman Islands area and the Indian Ocean as a possible area where this flight could have landed. Well, as I was saying, the flight was headed towards Beijing. However, it had direct veered off path and headed towards the Andaman Islands and the Indian Ocean. As I said earlier, the US and the international community are searching for this flight in this area right now.
U.S. air safety officials are in Kuala Lumpur working closely with the Malaysian government on the investigation. There are a number of possible scenarios that are being investigated as to what happened to the flight, and we are not in a position at this time to make conclusions about what happened, unfortunately. It's my understanding that based on some new information that's not necessarily conclusive, but new information, an additional search area may be opened in the Indian Ocean, and we are consulting with international partners about the appropriate assets to deploy. But I don't have anything more on that.
Well, there are a number of ways in which a Boeing 777 communicates with the ground. Now, what you can see here in this graphic are the 9 points through which a Boeing 777 could communicate with the ground now. According to investigators, they have picked up a ping from number 3, which is located on the Rolls-Royce engine of the Malaysian Airlines craft, hours after it lost contact with the ground. However, Malaysian Airlines executives now say that the possibility of discovering MH370 is very low right now.
We are actually searching that part of the geography, but the likelihood of the aircraft being there is probably very, very low.
Information is coming from various sources, and sometimes actually from reputable sources, particularly the recent one about messages coming from the engines of the aircraft for many hours after the aircraft we had lost contact with it. That has now been refuted by the people. The appropriate newspaper has retracted its statements, but in the meanwhile, it created issues for a lot of the family members that thought information had not been correctly translated to them. I don't think the families will be satisfied until they find out what happened to the aircraft. And I think you have a range of emotions in there, from people who are very vocal and very angry about the situation and very frustrated at the lack of information in terms of where is the aircraft, and others that may have reached a more equitable or balanced viewpoint, more resignation, I suspect. That may not be the most appropriate word, but it really is that they've come to accept that there's not going to be a good outcome and are just waiting quietly for the information to come in.
Now, over 200 passengers were on board this ill-fated flight that went missing. Prayers as well as candlelight vigils are taking place all over the world for the passengers who have gone missing.
The airline started flight MH318, the first flight to replace the MH370 from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, and flight number MH319 to replace MH371. Prayers were held in the Philippines too, where about 24 students activists in Manila held a vigil. The flight vanished after climbing to a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet between Kuala Lumpur and Beijing. Filipino students lit candles and offered prayers in front of their school building, offering messages of hope for families of the missing passengers. Now on its 6th day, search teams have yet to find any concrete traces of a missing plane that was carrying 239 people.
Now, Sri Lankan national captain Elmo Jayawardena, who is a pilot himself, says that most of the reports that are coming out on the Boeing 777 and what happened to flight MH370 are based on speculation, and that the Boeing 777 has an excellent safety record. Newsfirst Shamir Rasuldeen caught up with the captain Elmo Jayawardena today to find out what exactly happened to flight MH370.
Captain Jayawardena, the Boeing 777 has a very, very good safety record, and it has 9 communication channels as well. Can a plane go missing suddenly?
Yes. It's very simple. You can have 100 channels, right? But if something happened that instantly broke the communication lines, it goes away. If something happened to the two pilots instantly, then they can't communicate even if they had 1,000 lines.
Captain Jayawardena, everyone is aware of the black box, records the information, communication of the two pilots during a flight. There can also be confidential communication between the pilot and the airline as well. In an instance like this, must the airline provide the information to the authorities?
It's like this, you see, I don't know what kind of communications they had, but there is a voice recorder in the aeroplane. Now, whatever communications they had, right, Malaysian Airlines wouldn't have that unless they found the voice recorder.
Can there be confidential communication between the pilot and the airline during a flight?
Of course, I can take my handphone and call. No, very confidential. No, nobody would know.
In case of MH370, Captain Jayawardena, do you think that the airline is hiding something?
Certainly not. No, I don't think at all that they are hiding anything.
Well, reports indicate, Captain Jayawardena, that in a span of 72 hours, the flight in question has travelled to many countries before heading to Beijing. Can a Boeing 777 do so?
Absolutely no problem. Absolutely no problem.
The Boeing 777 design also says that there is a crack that might lead to corrosion, and this might disintegrate the flight in midair.
In the aviation history, there were aeroplanes that had cracks, right, like the Comet, right, or the Electra, right, they checked. But even if there is a crack, you know, the crack doesn't disintegrate an aeroplane immediately, and even then, even if that happened, I think the captain still had time to press that button and say, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday.
Rolls-Royce yesterday said, Captain Jayawardena, that the plane was 4 hours in operation after it disappeared.
Now, I also know that some people said that you're searching in the wrong way because it was off track, and for 4 hours it would have gone to Timbuktu, for that matter, right? But all these are speculations, total speculations. Right? When Rolls-Royce says it flew for 4 hours, they cover themselves beautifully that there was nothing wrong with the engines. Simple, right?
In the case of MH370, can you have any hope of the survivors?
There's always hope. I mean, I would say there's always hope.
Nearly $400 million is spent on a Boeing 777, Captain Jayawardena. Must the safety and security of passengers be strengthened further in an airline like this?
I don't think so. Because you see, all these aeroplanes, be it Airbus, be it Boeing, whatever it is, they are tested and then they are sent out to fly. And they have very stringent tests to be passed before they are qualified to fly an aeroplane. Same for the pilots too. But unfortunately, these things do happen.
239 people on board. Rescue and search missions are continuing for the last 7 days. What would have happened to the 239 people on board MH370? The authorities are left with more questions and less answers. Newsfirst is on alert.
Thank you, Shamir Rasuluddin, for that comprehensive interview. I would now like to turn our attention to a contradictory report from what we have been following right here. The American-based NBC reports that a seismic event close to the missing jet's path has been recorded by Chinese scientists. Now, this seismic event was monitored by 2 Malaysian stations at around 2:55 a.m. about 95 miles south of Vietnam, the location where we made final contact with flight MH370. Now, Newsfirst Krishni Panditratna is currently in Malaysia and she joins us now with a comprehensive update.
The Chinese press had recently carried reports, photographs and videos of debris, including a dead body with a life vest found off the coast of Malacca, but the defense minister has refuted such reports. Now, there are some puzzling reports flying around the media that cell phones of some passengers were still ringing when called, but these reports are yet to be confirmed. There are claims as of on Saturday that the plane had made an emergency landing in Nanning, China. Now, there are some misleading reports that the aircraft has been seen by fishermen in Kota Baru, in Kelantan and Merang, and an oil rig worker in the southeast of Vietnam. And now there is another rumor that the jet engine maker had reported the plane flying for 4 hours after it disappeared from the radar. The government, however, has denied that report. The Defense and Acting Transport Minister has said that Boeing, the aircraft manufacturer, and Rolls-Royce, the engine manufacturer, both denied that they received such data. And also, in more developments that are taking place across the capital, some 5,000 paper cranes were displayed at a shopping mall with symbols of hope for the victims of the plane. And that's not the only one. There are other tributes that are being laid for the victims, even at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. So as the mystery deepens as to what happened to the flight, this is Krishni Panditratna reporting from Malaysia.
That was Krishni Panditratna for Newsfirst. Newsfirst International Desk, of course, will keep a close watch on the developments unfolding in the case pertaining to the MH370, the missing flight, through our international bureau network spread out across the world. Now, many media stations around the world have been reporting their views on the missing flight. The internet is filled with theories of how and why flight MH370 disappeared off the radar and from existence. Now, you too can share your views with us on what you think happened to flight MH370 and your theories on it. Simply log on to www.newsfirst.lk or log on to our Facebook page. You can also join the conversation through Twitter. For the Newsfirst International Desk, I'm Ramesh Rugal Bandar. For now, it's back to Nadeem and Stephanie.